my god. Alright. Well, let's get this show on the road. Okay, first things first. How do I even approach this? We all know D2 is delayed. We're getting an update June 9th. Twitter's on fire right now. Do this, or they shouldn't do that. Amidst a little bit of a lull between games having, some quality content and update. I think in general right now things are just a little slow as far as releases. Let's see, game released in 2026. So far in January, my PC's being weird today. Yeah, not a lot of huge things on the docket. I think the biggest one was maybe High Guard, and we all know how that happened. That went down. Code Vein 2 again, of course, kind of, again, not great. I mean, not terrible. Neo 3, okay. And Mutagenics, I know have been decent, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me personally. It's a lot of people left wanting. So it sucks when your main game doesn't have content and hasn't really had quality content for a while. I think right now Bungie, the Destiny side of things, is just struggling to do anything and can't make the content that we want them to make. And because of that, there is no content in the game. There is a lot more negative videos and other things that circulate, which I don't really think too great. I think it solidifies the narrative that Destiny 2 is unredeemable, but that's my own personal idea. I think this 3-month period coming up is not necessarily a break, but I feel like for a long time, Destiny 2 has been trying to make content nonstop, and in doing so, they haven't actually been able to make anything of quality. And we've known this for years, right? Destiny really hasn't had people or funding to really support their efforts for a long time. And yeah, it just sucked. I don't know. But at this point, I don't think the break is a bad thing. Anything, I think it's a well-needed break for players and content creators alike. I think that there's a lot of people who are just burnt out on the game, and the thought of another meaningless grind at this point when you already have a billion tier 5s is just, and a full vault is just like, what's the point anymore? Like, why do I need another kinetic sniper with a slightly different perk combination? At this point, I think Bungie just needs to shut up and work, and then we'll see if it's enough to get the ball rolling again. And I don't think this is going to be like they're going to come back, it's going to save the game, this update's whatever. I think this is literally just to see if the ball can get rolling again. This will be probably like the billionth time they've tried to restart or get back this game back to where it should be. And I think to some degree, either way, Destiny goes dormant for a bit while the team tries to figure out what is an actual real way forward. And I hope they're thinking like that, because right now what they're doing is just, it's not sustainable, and they don't even have the people or the funding for it. So, and then, if people want to stay and get their last little licks in before on or moving on to another game, then let them stay. And it's okay to leave at this point, I think, because yeah, there's not going to be too much going on for a while. That being said, I think gaming in general has kind of become this more content is better than quality content, with the live service model becoming a pretty big deal in the gaming community. And I don't know if this is a healthy mindset for long-term retention on games. I get that you want people playing your game all the time. The numbers are good, and getting sales through skins and all that jazz. Like, you'll make more money if more people are playing your game. I get that. I really do. But I do think that this more content is better than quality content has led to content droughts, but periods where the content just doesn't really satisfy you. No matter how much you want it to. The part that satisfies you is that it's new. And then long term, it's like, okay, well, I've got all this. I don't need anymore. I think that Pete really started this Pete Parsons, Bungie CEO, really started this issue inside of Bungie. I don't think Pete Parsons was ever really practical about the way that he did things. I don't think he really ever thought about how things were gonna pan out long term. I don't think he was worried about how much money they were spending necessarily, only that they were gonna make 10 times that amount in the future or something like that. I want to take this moment to say I'm not an expert or anything. These are just my opinions and my thoughts. I think that Pete preyed on Sony's fear of Microsoft gobbling up studios in 2020. That same year, Microsoft acquired Bethesda, and then the same year that Microsoft acquired Activision, went ahead and acquired Bungie. In 2020 and 2022, Microsoft had acquired 30 internal studios for themselves. Bungie is just one studio. So I think Sony was taken advantage of by Pete, which is smart on him. You know, he saw an opportunity and he took it. I don't think it was for the best though. And we look kind of at the years leading up to now, back in 2016, Pete gets CEO and Rise of Iron comes out. 2017, we get Age of Triumph, and then later that same year, around September, we get DT. In the next year, we get Forsaken, which is, considered one of the best expansions ever in Destiny. And during these years, Pete starts pushing for Bungie to branch out and start other games, which was likely for any studio that has majorly been working on the same game for an extended period of time. It is weird, however, how right after 2018, when Forsaken launched, in 2019, get Shadowkeep. And this is a year where Bungie told us that the DLC would be smaller. And it's just interesting that they have such a great success with Forsaken, yet the next year we aren't getting something even close to the size of Forsaken. Just kind of shows me that funds were allocated differently. Whether that was Pete or other people with like minds, I think that was a decision made in 2019. And Shadowkeep was our first expansion that really was kind of terrible, but focused more on quality of life because it's cheaper than doing new content. Then in 2020, we get Beyond Light. This is another expansion that has its moments, but for the most part felt kind of lacking. And this is also the same year that all these incubation projects, for the most part, start to get expansions, or not expansions, but like they start to expand upon these incubation projects and ramp up things. And if you remember what I said earlier, this is also the same year that Microsoft acquired Bethesda. Again, I'm just going off speculation here, but it seems to me that during Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and then this is when a lot of the money got poured into these projects. And it wasn't until the promise of Sony buying Bungie, as well as the NetEase deal, we got Witch Queen in 2020. And this was a well-received expansion, and it also had the 3.0 subclasses. This is also the year that Sony finally acquired Bungie. Then in the next year, Lightfall comes out. We get some new cool stuff, but for the most part, mixed and poor reviews. And again, we get a restructuring of our seasonal model. And then last but not least, in 2024, we get the final shape. And people like it, but the season hit or miss, mostly a miss. And then we also lose Luke Smith, Mark Noseworthy, and Chris Proctor all leave Bungie in 2024. And then the next year, of course, we get Edge of Fates, which is very poorly received. And then months later, after that release, Pete Parsons leaves Bungie. The reason I bring all this up is this is a very common thing in the corporate world. My grandmother also went through a similar experience when she was working at AOL, where they had a really good business, I wouldn't say model, but culture or values or whatever you want to call it. And then they brought in a new CEO, and those values and things shifted, and companies started to not necessarily go under, but lose steam. The shift was became about like resenting customers rather than work with them. So, I think Bungie went from making good games to making money. I don't think that after Shadowkeep, the leadership was really focused on making Destiny great. I think that the focus was on trying to expand the company's portfolio in order to make a bunch of money. And then when that kind of failed, they Sony to bail them out by saying, "Hey, look, we have all this stuff going on," knowing damn well that it wasn't going to ever see the light of day. That being said, a little bit, Pete isn't the one who makes all the decisions. Adjustments were probably needed and made after complications arose, but the mindset to cut things rather than actually come up with solutions, or the mindset to cut that were really benefiting them for things in the future that could possibly benefit them, was already instilled. And I feel like another big thing was jaded developers trying to fight corporate to get things in the game that they want to get in the game. I don't think that really helped, but I do think that's another reason. And that's why we saw people leave after the final shape and the final story was told. They wanted to finish a project that, again, I'm just speculating, but it feels like they wanted to finish a project that they started, and then they were kind of done with the system that was set up inside Bungie Studios. But Pete never really cared about the company. He just wanted to make himself look good. And, he wasn't really, he was asked to leave, most likely. Like, I don't think he was fired. Like, he was let go, fired, however you want to say it, but it was the polite way of doing that, which means that, he can kind of go anywhere and just show the numbers and not really talk about anything else. What a lot of CEOs kind of do sometimes. And it really sucks when they do it. To this point, this mindset starts at the top. And if a CEO doesn't follow the company's values, this tells lower and mid-level management that they don't have to either. And when this, happens, I feel like a lot of people start acting on their own interests, and then they don't really think about the company that much. It becomes more of a, okay, well, how do I get my bag rather than how do we make a good product, in my opinion. Another company's goal overall should be to have like a healthy relationship with customers and not resent them for being critical, because when you start as a company start resenting people, it just makes them feel shitty. And I feel like that's what's happening a lot in the community right now, is we feel like they don't care, or that they're just not listening or something like that. And I think Pete resented us a little bit because, as a community, we called him out. And it's because Destiny 2 people or players care about our game so much. We made memes, we made videos, we highlighted his buying of cars and, in amidst like complications at Bungie. And in doing so, we kind of pointed him out as a threat to the future of the company. And if I saw a bunch of that stuff about me, I probably wouldn't be too happy about it. To this point, leadership has always been a struggle at Bungie, I think. Thus, the company's priorities have always been very hit or miss. And it really doesn't feel like they ever had like their priorities totally figured out, because they would do something great and then, the next, in the next 6 months or something would come out about the company doing something that wasn't so great. And yeah, I think that mindset was kind of like a cancer, and I hope we're recovering, but it's very apparent that the effects of that we're still dealing with in current day and age. And then this sucks because in the long run, players and devs just end up suffering. And this is not just a Bungie thing. Anthem is a great example of something that could have been great, but pressure to cut costs and give up quality to push a game out to just make money, or the lack of leadership, has really been like the nail in the coffin for a lot of games before they even get a chance to live. I think Concord was a great example of this. I don't know what happened. I didn't do a ton of research on that, but I don't know how you get $200 million to make a game and you don't have a game by the end of development cycle. To me, that just kind of shows a lack of leadership and focus on what they're trying to do in general. And yeah, I don't know. I think leadership is very important because it really sets the tone for the company and everybody else involved. If you have somebody who's really dedicated and loves their job and loves to make games, or really wants to make a great product, then I feel like a lot of people under them are going to want to do the same thing. And it sucks because this type of thinking has really, a lot of people are done with AAA gaming because of it, which only adds to the problem because, if no one's left to to fight, then who's left to care, you know? Yeah. And then, yeah, another great game that I really liked but had a problem with is Monster Hunter Wilds. You know, a lot of hype coming off of Monster Hunter World. They had the blueprint. I don't see why they wouldn't have the resources. And then it comes out and we get performance issues, low frames, stuttering constantly. There's a lot of there's certain features that are cut, like when you eat, your health bar getting bigger and stuff like that. I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff missing. And, you know, the worst part about this is the backlash is always after the fact, which is terrible because then the mindset becomes, well, how do we release a game in a state that is playable enough to make money, but, and then fix it later? Instead of being, we want to make a good, polished game because we love games. And this does happen. I've seen it happen. I think recently Expedition 33 is a wonderful example of a technically indie studio making a AAA title, something that can compare. And it's because everybody, I feel like, at least the big players at that company, all wanted the same thing. A great game, a fun experience, something that they could really show off to the world instead of money kind of being the main focus. Not saying that you don't need both. You definitely do still need money. Let's not kid ourselves here, but it shouldn't be the focus when you're making a game. Unlike Expedition 33, I feel like a lot of games nowadays you have to wait like an extra year just to get enough update for them to finally be somewhat playable or playable in general. Yeah, and I'm just tired. I would really like polish and commitment and not excuse. Another great example, Borderlands 4. They made something different from the previous Borderlands. Then it came out and it's buggy as hell. I don't know if it was buggy, but it was definitely performance was. And then instead of trying to work with the community, they just doubled down. Said I don't know, I forget what Randy said, but he said some off the wall stuff. And my question is it really that hard to test hardware before release? Like, it's not possible to maybe grab the, like a 3070, 4070, and a 5070 and just test it on all of that to get a baseline. Then, like, as a studio, I feel like maybe it is too much. Maybe I don't know enough about that, but there's got to be some way that they can test this stuff in-house that's not on like an in-house system before release, in my opinion. Because otherwise, it's like they're just releasing this either knowing that it's not going to run well or unknowingly they think it's going to run well on every system when that's not the case at all. And I understand if like a smaller studio can't do this, but like the really big studios that make all these AAA titles year after year should have plenty of money to make these, to just see if, I don't know, these games can run or figure out some way to do it. Yeah. Closing thought, I do think Destiny can be redeemed. That redemption isn't going to come from another D2 update or, 4 more, in fact. We need something to look forward to on the D2 side of things, but right now I don't think Bungie, at least the Destiny side of Bungie, is capable of doing that. And, because of that, I'm going to take a break from Destiny and come back in June, and then we'll see what they have to offer. But right now, a new Bungie game like Marathon sounds way better than more D2, if I'm being real. Unless there's something huge on the horizon, I would rather a new game than D2. A new Bungie game, I should clarify. And, there's other things to look forward to and play as well. I know Crimson Desert I'm looking forward to, and hopefully that game's good. It looks really good right now, but you never. And, I like the D2 team, or what's left of it, I should say. And I appreciate that they're at least trying to save something, if anything at all, of the game. And it just sucks that we're in this position as a Destiny community. And I hope I didn't step on too many toes in the process of kind of getting these thoughts out. And I hope Bungie as a company can make it through these next few years. And I hope we get to see more out of them from, I don't know, anything Destiny related really to like a D3. Like, I hope that's still possible. I hope that Marathon does well this next week, and I hope that in doing so, Sony kind of greenlights maybe some other projects, some other, Destiny projects and stuff like that. And I also hope that, in a distant future, there's maybe another Bungie game that we get to try out at some point. I really think that Bungie does make good games. I just think for the longest time they've had leadership issues, and I hope we're maybe in a phase at least where leadership is getting better and not worse. But those are going to be my thoughts on everything going on right now, and it really sucks, but it is what it is. And in the meantime, I know I've been enjoying Monster Hunter now that it's a year later and I can actually, play the game and it runs decently. I think I'm going to check out some Division 2. I want to play through some of the old Halo campaigns as well as the old Gears campaigns. And then of course we'll be there for Marathon as well. But if you like the video, let me know in the comments down below. And if you are, just let me know your opinion on this video. See you next one. Bye.